Alright, let's get started. Hey guys, I'm Mikey Warhol, and I'm scared. I'm just a little nervous as to how all of this is gonna go. I don't know if I've really thought this through, but I'm gonna still go on with it. So as some of you know, I've been in recovery for almost a year now, and this month I'm actually going to get my 1-year chip, but I'm going to be talking about the series of events that kind of led me into recovery. This isn't easy for me to talk about. This is actually really difficult, but I feel like I have to be honest with you guys, and I have to be honest with myself and with what's happened and what happened. The series that led me into recovery were actually really scary and traumatic for me, or for anyone really. I'm doing this because I know I'm brave and I'm strong enough to be able to tell you all and share this story in hopes that it may help someone else. But I know once I talk about it, I know how healing that's gonna be for me. And I need to do this. I need to do this to remember where I came from and what had to happen in order for me to get better. So this story is going to be extremely long. It takes place in 2 days, so I think I'm going to make a 3-part video. So as you all know, I struggled for a really long time with alcoholism, that it was essentially ruining my life. I was very miserable, and I was also very lonely, which led me to want to be friends with whoever gave me the time of day. So I would try and befriend people at parties or bars, anywhere really, and I befriended this guy who really took a liking into partying with me. So we would go out and drink and party and everything, but I never really knew who this guy was. Our friendship was very superficial. So I honestly didn't know who he was, what his deal was. Although I did know that he was a drug addict, because he would shoot up right in front of me, and at that time that didn't really interest me. So this friendship continued for a while, and it was actually a friendship that I kept secret from absolutely everyone. No one knew who this guy was. I didn't know who this guy was. So this guy and I, we were day drinking, and I was day drinking and he was shooting up. And we were just running around town, just looking for my next drink and his next fix. And let me tell you guys something. There comes a point in every alcoholic's mind where drinking just doesn't cut it anymore. It didn't cut it for me, and I wanted to experience something grander. What I'm trying to say here is that I let this guy shoot me up with what he was carrying. The drugs that he had, they're irrelevant to the story. But just know that that's how low I had gotten in my life. I was always a drinker, but I also kind of maintained a pretty bohemian attitude towards drugs, although I always told myself, I vowed to myself that I would never take a needle and shoot myself up with anything. I've lost friends to these drugs. I've watched a lot of people, good people, just completely ruin their lives by shooting up. But that's where I was. I was in a car at a mall parking garage shooting up these drugs. When I think about it now, I just feel so bad for myself. If I could go back in time and see myself in that dark parking garage with a needle in my arm, I would just want to hold myself. I would just want to hold myself. And at that time I didn't care what I was doing. An alcoholic, when they're really sick, they like to think that they're invincible, that they could get away with anything, because that's what the disease tells you. It lies to you and it tells you that you're invincible. And so at that time I didn't care what I was shooting up. I just knew that it made me feel amazing and that I wanted to keep going. And so we did. We just kept going from place to place, talking to drug dealers and trying to score. We went to a bad part of town where just a bunch of drug dealers and just people you don't really want to be around hung out. And then we met up with another guy, and this guy knew my friend, and so we asked him if he knew where we could score, and he did. And so we went with him, and I have to tell you guys that we were using my car throughout this entire time. We were in my car. I wasn't driving because, I mean, even as drunk as I was or high as I was, I didn't have the balls to drive. So I handed my keys over to my friend. That way he was able to drive and I could just chill in the passenger seat. Chill. Yeah, there was nothing chill about that entire time. So we had this guy here in my car. He had told us that he had some friends that probably had what we were looking for, and that they were staying in a motel nearby. So we agreed to go with him. So the three of us show up at this motel, and it's a sketchy motel, guys. Like, this is one of those $10 a night motels that you know nothing good can come from this. So we show up at this hotel and we meet his friend, who's this skinny girl with long black hair, a black party dress, and big old eyelashes. So from that point, we actually started driving around town again, looking to score. And the friend that I was with prior, he had told me that he felt sick and he wanted to go home. And so we took him home, and I was left with this drug dealer that I had just met that day, and his black-haired friend. And then some other people came into that hotel room, and apparently they were friends of this black-haired, black-dressed girl. So my new friend came up to me and he told me, hey, we have to leave the room for a couple hours, is that okay? And I said, yeah, sure. Is she gonna come with us? And he said no, she's gonna stay in this room for a while. And then I didn't even think too much of it, I just went along with it. And we went into my car and he was driving because I still didn't feel safe enough or right for me to take the wheel and start driving. So he's explaining to me as we're driving to nowhere in particular that, and he says, well, I'm a pimp, and my friend is actually one of the prostitutes that I pimp out. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, that just blew my mind. I had never come across or met anyone who was in that lifestyle, I guess. But that's why we had to leave the room, because he had essentially put her to work. And that guy was not a drug dealer, or maybe he was, but he was there as a client. So all these red flags start popping up in my head, and I'm ignoring all of them. So we're driving around still, and he pulls up to, I don't know, seemed like an empty street, and this was already probably 2 a.m., 3 a.m. into the night. But he was also very, very inebriated. He wasn't drinking, but he was shooting up that crap that he had gotten. And he told me something that really, really scared me. He had told me that if I didn't perform a sexual act on him, that he was going to rape me. That if I didn't do this, he was going to rape me. And at first, I thought he was kidding. I thought it was a joke. I didn't believe him. I thought he was just being silly. But no, he was dead serious. I had already gone through an occurrence where I was sexually assaulted. And so when he had grabbed me by the shoulder, I knew what I had gotten myself into, and I knew that I was in danger. I felt defenseless, I guess, because I was too high to react or to defend myself. So I felt like I had to oblige with his request. So that happened, and after that, it was already really early in the morning. The sun was coming up, and he had told me that we had to pick up his friend, the prostitute. At that point, I was still really, really high. So there wasn't much reaction, there wasn't much of anything from me. And so we went back, we picked up his friend, and he drove us to his apartment. And I really, really wanted to go home, but I just couldn't bring myself to say anything. I just kept my mouth shut and just kept going with the flow, I guess. And not only that, but I was still too sick to be able to drive. I knew if I was gonna be behind the wheel, I was gonna either kill myself, kill someone else, or get arrested. I told him that I was just gonna sit on the couch and kind of wait it off, sober up a little bit before I get behind the wheel. And his roommates were just like him. They were really kind of shifty, really scary, and they had a platter of drugs right in front of them. And they could tell that I was really uncomfortable because I had my legs crossed, I was hugging myself, but they didn't really care. I just wanted to go home. Then there came a point where they had told me to go to a different room because they had to discuss something. And so I went to the other room, and my night had already gone terribly wrong, and I knew something worse was going to happen, or something worse can happen. And it was just intuition, and my anxiety was through the roof, and I was scared. I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I could hear my car. Someone had started my car, and I drive a really old car. I know the sounds that my car makes because they're really distinctive noises. So I knew it was my car, and I didn't know what to do. Like, these people had just took my car, and I don't know what they were going to do. And then so I just kept waiting. I heard my car come back, and then I just opened the door and went outside, and my car was there. And it was obvious that it had been moved, that they had done something to my car, that they had taken it out. I don't know what they did to it. Well, I do know now what they did to it. Turns out that they hotwired it, and they pretty much stole everything that was in there. And so I was freaking out. And I was asking them, what did you do to my car? Like, please don't tell me that you did something to it, you messed with it, or please, like, I just want to go home. So they started talking amongst each other how they were going to kill me. They were talking amongst each other like I wasn't in the room freaking out, and telling each other that they should just shoot me up with drugs, more drugs, so I could overdose and die, or just throw me in a ditch somewhere. And at that point I was actually starting to panic, and I was visibly panicking. I was crying, I was screaming. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I actually pissed my pants. But that's how horrified I was. I was convinced that these guys were going to kill me. I see one of the guys go run into a different apartment and come back out, and he was wearing those gun holsters that you wear around your chest, and I could see very clearly that he had a gun in one side of the holster, and he had a gun clip on the other side of the holster. And I forgot to mention that I was unable to call anyone from my cell phone because my phone had died. So it's not like I could have called a friend or my mom, my sister, or anyone. But I had the phone in my hand, my dead phone in my hand, and I was just grasping it so hard that I actually bruised my hand. I was just completely frozen. Everything stopped. Everything absolutely stopped. And then I keep seeing this guy start walking towards me with this holster, and he made a move where he tried to remove the gun, and the clip went flying out. I saw that clip fly out onto the ground, and I saw this guy try and reach for it, and that's when my fight or flight instincts kicked in, and I flew. I flew. I ran so fast. I've never ran that fast ever in my life, but I just booked it. I booked it up the street. I didn't care where I was going. I was just running. I knew I had to run because these guys had guns. And this part's really fucked up, but this is what happened. I kept running, and then I ran into a street where it was like a cul-de-sac or just a neighborhood, and I just ran in front of the first house that I saw, and I started knocking, and I kept looking behind me because I knew that these guys were going to be either chasing me on foot or they were going to be in their cars looking for me. I didn't think twice, and I just opened the door and I went inside this house. But alright, I think that's gonna be it for this first part of the video. I'm going to continue this story on the second video, and please stay tuned because this story gets even weirder and crazier and more hellish by the second. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for watching, and keep your eyes out for the second part. Thanks.